much of an issue. If anybody does have an issue with the sound, maybe just try to come a little bit forward if you're in the balcony. If you're in the balcony and you're still having trouble hearing, come down, let us know. We'll do our best to find you a spot down here and get as close to the speakers as possible. But really, it's above and beyond my control at this point. So we're just going to do the best that we can. The audio technician is going to be working on it in the interim, trying to get everything resolved so that hopefully at some point we can get the microphone back on. But again, we're just going to deal with what we can do. So today we're here to discuss a very important topic, mind control. I'm sure all of you guys have seen and heard about it in various movies, online clips, great spy novels, things like that. And it exists on many various different levels. You have people who are programmed to be spies, assassins. You have people that are subject to subversion from music and media. So it really has permeated into every last facet of the cranny of our social culture. And we're all subject to it, whether or not we would like to admit it. Coming to talks like this and becoming aware of various tactics and powers that we utilize in order to shape and steer public consciousness is probably the first and foremost important tool in being able to combat it. So today we have an individual here who has actually suffered through some ridiculous trauma. Her story is absolutely compelling. She's a survivor of MK and Project Monarch. Her rescuer is also here. And in addition to that, we have an individual who was kind enough to lend herself to the event who has some additional perspective. So we have Matthew O'Brien, who is the MK survivor. We have Mark Phillips, who is her rescuer. And we have television legend Roseanne Barr, who will also be talking about dissociative identity disorder, how she's been dealing with it and recovering from it, what she's been subject to, and she'll probably mention, how Hollywood utilizes various tactics and techniques. And it's going to be a very interesting talk. A lot of paradigms are being challenged, a lot of things that you might hear might sort of question your belief system, but that's sort of the catalyst and the fire that we're hoping to put under you guys so that when you go home, you can spend some additional time looking into these subjects and looking into this information and verify it on your own. Don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe what they're saying. Do the fact checking and the research for yourself and come to your own conclusion. So without any further ado, it's unbelievable to have her here taking part in this discussion. She's a producer, she's a writer, she's an actress, she's a comedian, she's a presidential nominee, she's a strong supporter of the medical marijuana community. She helps out with We Are Change, she's done stuff with Occupy. She's got an organization where she helps abused children. Without any further ado, please give an absolutely heartwarming welcome for Roseanne Barr.
their privacy is invaded is to point their sticky fingers in the direction of the light and squeal, "Conspiracy nut!" Yeah, we're the crazy ones. As if there are not cabals that hold the world's strings and push their pawns and shills out into the limelight to face the public they manipulate. Let's take a look at how naive and cuckoo it would be to think such a thing. All kinds of international organizations are composed of people united by common interests. Everything from world music to softball to bird watching to worshiping at the altar of Justin Bieber. Bronze people to hook up and form organizations, all of whom have their own hierarchies, communication networks, conventions, etc. Have you noticed that? And yet we're expected to believe that the elites who wield the most power, geopolitically, via world banking, commerce, and weaponry, and the associated tentacles, are only casually aware of each other's identity and agendas. You don't really have, you have to be a conspiracy nut to not follow that idea, wouldn't you? It's real COINTELPRO spin on the concept of naivety. And it's why we keep shining the light on the dirty tricks they pull in the dark, and the ones they hide right on the front pages of their mainstream media outlets. The ridiculous is made to look like it's sublime reality, such as this one, which is a real hoot. In America, the poor are bailing out the rich and the banks. You can't make this shit up. Proof of mind control and the application of drugs is the fact that without it, the American people would be demanding their money back. Let's not kid ourselves about where most Americans get their information. That's Fox News. That may be obvious standard there for the Tea Party Times and other this is really hard. I just got this. And other useful idiots. Let's not kid ourselves about where most Americans get their information. Fox News may be the obvious standard bearer for the Tea Party types and other useful idiots who show how free they are by bad-mouthing President Obama 24/7 and calling anyone left of Karl Rove a libtard. But they serve the status quo by being the right-wing end of the bad cop, good cop charade that allows Jon Stewart, Bill Maher, and other hipster pundits to point to them as the problem. Those atop what sadly passes for the left for too long now continue to enrich themselves, just like the right, through lying, misdirection, and pretense, while looking like the good guys. Meanwhile, speaking of grand conspiracies, we know that instead of indicting the two-headed Republican monster that inhabits Washington, D.C., the Arianna Huffingtons will keep shoveling in the money for droning on and on about how much better things would be if it weren't for gargoyles like Mitch McConnell and Ted Cruz. They may as well be talking about how great things would be if the Joker would ease up on Batman. Speaking of naivete, here's another way that the concept gets a little distorted in the hall of mirrors in which we find ourselves when we lift the veil woven by corporatist media and good old-fashioned dominant culture values. Speaking of mind control, people who think that spells, incantations, mantras, and such are relics from the past, or devices used only by primitive cultures to manipulate their superstitious masses, are not as sophisticated as they might think. Those are not things from a bygone age. They are ingrained in the fabric of our present-day world culture and are mainstays of political persuasion and the churning world of commerce, which is a nicer way of saying the unquestioning, nationalist, consumerist mindset that drives the lemming-like parade and charade that comprises most of our lives. We may stop being required to recite the Pledge of Allegiance when we leave high school, but we never really escape the onslaught of bumper sticker-ish rhetoric that's designed to keep us in line. We may as well call it a spell. I'm talking about the widely held belief, in the U.S., that the U.S. is the world's foremost bastion of freedom, decency, and honor. And any who don't swallow that idea, much less stand against it, are terrorists. Whistleblowers are seen as traitors who aid and abet the enemy, who, as George W. Bush conveniently explained, is anyone who is not for his policies. Pretty convenient, isn't it? And President Obama, who promised to close Guantanamo, continues that tradition. Divide and conquer, it's not a mantra that the elites, the Illuminati, or the 1%, or any of that choose to utter publicly, but it's one that is a pillar of their strategy to retain and consolidate power. They know the more we, this is hard. They know that the more we feel threatened and marginalized, the more we faction against each other. And the more we faction against each other, the more threatened and marginalized we are. That's some deal that those elites have working for them. It's some kind of deal. It's a vicious cycle for most of the world's people, but a winning strategy for the world's owners. Are there owners? When the 6 members of the Walton family who own Walmart have as much wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans, well, we won't even go into the Koch brothers right now. Let's just say they're happy that they've managed to herd Americans into 2 camps labeled conservative and liberal or progressive. And that they can use the resulting gridlock to paralyze the public while they continue to bust unions, attack women's reproductive rights, and also the fight for equal pay in the workplace. George Washington said he feared the day might come when a couple of powerful political parties might own the United States government. Well, it didn't take long, did it? My own candidacy proved how much the Coke versus Pepsi system fears any difference, any kind of an alternative. But we won't roll over because surrender is not an option. The greedy, paranoid control freaks who are pulling their wagons in a circle and trying to tighten the noose around what is left of our freedoms must be fought on every level, and that is what we will do. I ask you, what else is worth doing? Kathy and I and Mark are friends, and though we seldom see each other, We do talk on the phone all the time, frequently, and we always talk about what we can do to help people who are dissociative. Because people who are dissociative have already been under some form of mind control, even if it's internal, and are at great risk right now, at great risk. Dissociation is a created state of terror. Forgetting and remembering in fragments of time, hiding things from yourself, and then finding them in forgotten places years later, wearing different eyeglass prescriptions, during the day, being allergic to things, and then not being allergic to those same things within weeks are all part of it. But the most useful part of all mind control and dissociation is that it makes tolerance of the intolerable appear normal. That is what was needed for power to control the citizens of any given nation. When the intolerable and the unspeakable are spoken and recognized, and named, identified, they can be properly opposed. When woven into visibility, they no longer lurk in the shadows of the secret dark places, and only then things can become ripe for change. This is that time. Because, of the internet and for as long as we'll have it, for as long as we'll be allowed to have it. To those who are divided by violence, trauma, shock, or awe, are there people here like that? For my sake and yours, anybody who is divided at all or has PTSD or any kind of stuff like that, internal conflict, thank God we have, and I say God, thank God we have marijuana. Holy ganja, and I'm one of those people because I know that this is a holy thing that can remove mind control. The legal drugs are the ones that keep it in place. So right there, I don't think really you need to know more than that about how mind control works. I don't think so. That's it in a nutshell. Keeping people unaware of what they're doing helps you respond to panic programming. The mentally divided are being activated at this time because a fugue state and a fugue state enacted. Horrors inflicted with no awareness whatsoever of being present while you do it. Writing down what you feel is the key, an easy key, to unlock the prison doors of mind control. Especially like if you smoke a joint and then write. That is that's two revolutionary acts in a time of complete and utter bullshit, lies. I don't really know what people are expecting me to talk about today. I know that I talked about mind control in Hollywood and all that stuff, which I would say something about. Mark knows far more than I do, and I'll probably be talking about it too, right? People who are in show business generally are people who, have a great need to be loved and accepted and perform and to get love and positive feedback back from it. That's what drives most artists and stuff. So they're very, very sensitive people, and when sensitive people are like lights for moths and vampires and zombies and perverts.
the more creative you are, the more sensitive you are, the more you really, really need to be able to employ some sort of self-protection so that not just always accepting things, because that is part of being a survivor of mind control too, is that you using all of that new age stuff, which is the same crap as the old age stuff. You know, people, it drives me crazy sometimes as people are like, oh, I'm so forgiving and loving, I'm so wonderfully pacifist, loving and forgiving, and everything is wonderful, and we're all, well, you know, it's just bullshit. It's bullshit. And it's harmful, horrible, negative, murderous bullshit like that. Because it keeps people from getting up off of their butts and, you know, joining in the fight. And all that positive thinking stuff is what victims do. And so if you are a victim of any kind of stuff like that, the best thing you could do for yourself today is to stop talking about forgiveness. Please do that, just for me, for just today. Maybe it's time we're together. Please stop talking about forgiveness until genocide in Canada ends or something like that, you know, of the native tribes of Canada. Things are turning out, because they're not. And, you know, talk about what's real and what's really happening in the most, in the darkest, most secretive places. When you talk about it, you're exposing it to light, and it mutates. In my life, I did heal from multiple personality disorder. I'm about as integrated as somebody like me is ever going to get. And that's because I actually am aware of what I'm doing. Almost every minute of the day, I'm aware of what I'm doing. And also, I don't say anything that I don't mean. And also, if I don't believe it's true, I'm not going to do it. Because I won't divide against myself like that anymore. I lived a lifetime like that. Saying one thing and doing another. And that's called the fugue state, just in case you want to know. And it's really hard to try to come to a place where you actually live your beliefs. It's so hard, isn't it? Because you're like, what part of this is real and what part? You know, I see a lot of people nodding, and I'm happy to think that you know what I'm talking about. And I was thinking about all the things I could say here today, and I was very excited to be with Kathy and Mark and people like us all here. And I was just thinking that one thing I could do is just to show you what I've done and how plus a lot of other things, a lot of really excellent therapy. From a person who's from here, Dr. Colin Ross. And he's been my doctor for a long, long time, my psychiatrist that helped me. But here's what I do, and here's what you should do too, when you approach a panic state. And the reason I'm telling you that is because in order to be free of mind control, here's what that means. That words, magic words, or touch words, or code words, they don't work on you anymore. And neither do symbols. They don't anymore enact a certain reaction. And it's so funny and so simple, because you know what? It's all about breathing. By God, it's all about breathing. Staying rational, staying safe, staying centered, staying calm, and staying in the right mental state, which we all really need, because we are being assaulted with thoughts and images that are foreign to what we believe. So here's what you do. I devised this breathing for people, and I divide it into 3 parts, and it is based on the number 3, and it is based on the number 10, for anybody who wants to, and all of you should. Read about the number 3, and read about the number 10. Numbers are some incredible magic and symbols. And they're also real. They're not things that you're going to believe against all logic, fact, science, and truth. That's the difference. They're real numbers. They're very mystical and very deep. So here's what I do. And I want you to do it too, because we have to get our breathing to where it doesn't speed up and then we lose control. So, in 3 parts of 10 seconds each, it'd be cool if we could all do it together too. Like, we inhale for the count of 10, hold it, contain it in our lungs, as we mentally disperse it through our bodies. And then, exhale for 10 too. So what we're doing is taking in, receiving, containing, dispersing, oxygen, which is what our cells most require, and which is so great because it just happens to be free. For now. But it is free, the thing we need most, the thing that helps us most, the thing that can heal us most, is free. So we're going to take that in, we're going to contain it in our lungs while we're mentally sending oxygen through every cell of our body, and then we will exhale within the same 10 count, and everything that doesn't serve our body, we exhale so that the plants and the living things of the earth who do use that in this exchange called life, will receive it too. And then we've like transmuted something very, very deeply through our body and added something positive to the world. And the thing that makes it so positive is that it's the awareness of the fact that you're doing it. That is no small thing. Awareness is no small thing. So you want to do it? I wish I had a